Welcome to episode 3 of the Bagels and Breadsticks podcast. I'm Richard.
And I am Logan.
And this week is kind of difficult, but we missed a lot over the last week, so let's get right into it. We got to start with the Laver Cup.
Yes.
What a shocker. Team World wins its first Laver Cup since its inception. They're now 4-1. Well, sorry, they have their first win amidst 4 losses in a row to Team Europe.
Insane.
It was a very strong Team Europe every single time. You look at the rankings comparisons every single year up until now, and even this year, Team Europe is significantly higher in the rankings than Team World. But I think this one comes down to form. Because you look at each team respectively, and while Europe had higher rankings, Team World have been playing better, I feel like, leading up to it. I mean, you have Francis Tiafoe, who made his dream run at the U.S. Open. Felix played very well. Even Jack Sock did well, which sometimes we just bring Jack Sock out. Just because why not?
I was about to say, him and Tiafoe taking down Federer and Nadal in doubles was
It's very
wild.
saddening to me that is Roger's last match is a loss. I mean, it's not how you want him to go out, but
not ideally.
It's kind of how he went out.
It's how the world spins sometimes.
He had a very fun Instagram post, though. I'm trying to find where it was, where he just kind of captured all of his. Yep, there it is. We quote from his caption: "We all hope for a fairy tale ending. Here's how mine went: lost my last singles, lost my last doubles, lost my last team event, lost my voice during the week, lost my job. But still, my retirement could not have been more perfect, and I'm so happy with how everything went. So don't overthink that perfect ending. Yours will always be amazing in your own way." I think Roger's send-off at the Laver Cup was also very, very good and very emotional. I mean, he made Rafa cry.
My God.
Which Roger did apologize for in the press conference, but I think it's going to be hard. I don't know if we're going to have another relationship, another friendship, bromance, whatever you want to call it, rivalry that we got from Roger and Rafa.
Oh, 100%. It was, watching them was great. They had a great rivalry, but also they were really good friends, and it was it's a very admirable relationship that they have, I think. But sort of going off of that, I think it's going to be interesting. I think we are looking into more world victories in the future for Laver Cup because, I mean, historically speaking, Europe is where the big 3 was, right? So so obviously since its inception, it's always kind of had that leaning on it, right? But I don't know. And we were talking about this a little bit last week about sort of how everything's becoming more up in the air, and we're seeing sort of a level playing field kind of now. So it's very appropriate, I think, that the world won. As shocking as it is.
It is.
I think it's very appropriate.
It makes the most sense, like you said, from where we're at right now. So, no, I definitely agree with you. And I think that this Laver Cup was a really great example of it. And you had guys who you didn't expect to winning. Like we said, Jack Sock and Tiafoe. And then we have to mention the absolute whirlwind of a match that was Felix versus Novak. What on earth overcame Felix? Because he played honestly some of the best tennis that at least I personally have ever seen him play.
Oh man!
Against one of the greats,
right? Who had previously destroyed Tiafoe in their bout.
No, yeah, and I think that it's really telling for Felix and Francis. Those matches that they played on Sunday. Are really telling about where things are heading for them, and it's in a positive sense. Francis played very well in those last 2 sets against Tsitsipas.
Oh, he really did, yeah.
So I mean, I think it was a great tournament. I think it's the closest one we've had so far, and it was really nice. It also we had way more of the younger players playing. Novak played a lot, but that kind of makes sense. But Berrettini played a lot. He played a lot. I want to count how many matches he played. I think he played in 3 matches, or 1, 2, 3 matches, which is a lot. But no, yeah, some great showings all around, as well as like even on the other side from Casper Ruud and Tsitsipas. And honestly, in my opinion, I think where the tides would have turned was if you took out Cam Norrie and if they were able to land Carlos Alcaraz, and I think tides would have changed. But with that said, I mean Taylor Fritz played great against Cam Norrie.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely dominated that first set, winning 6-1. So I think really, really great tournament. I think this is probably my favorite, and that's not because I was hoping for World to win, but I think it's because
we just got like a bunch of really good matches.
A bunch of really good matches from players that you wouldn't necessarily expect against certain other players, in the sense of like Felix doing so well against Novak and Tiafoe doing so well against Tsitsipas. I think that those kinds of examples, and Jack Sock showing why he's so good at doubles, winning 2 out of his 3 doubles matches. I don't know why they played him 4 times, but if you wanted singles, I mean Alex de Minaur proved himself. That was another really standout for me. De Minaur versus Murray was a great match. Really good tennis from both sides.
Yeah.
I think, oh my god, one of my favorite videos from the weekend was Andy Murray being coached by the big 3.
Right. I saw that when he was sitting.
Was absolutely hysterical to me.
Yeah.
I feel like that was our like flashback moment, our throwback moment, because that's kind of what we grew up with, watching those 4 battle it out, which was really nice to see the 4 of them work together again.
Yeah. Oh my god. I saw that video pop up in my feed and I was like, "Oh, look at them."
Yeah.
They're so cute.
But final remarks on the Laver Cup. I really enjoyed it. I'm excited for next year's. Hoping that next year could give us a repeat of this year in the level of competitiveness.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I hate to stick on Felix more, but just especially sort of like seeing like him like perform this well, like is incredible. I feel like he's kind of been in a drought lately.
Every athlete, I feel like when they go into a slump, they need that one big win that'll kind of rejuvenate them, for lack of a better term. And I think his win against Novak is doing precisely that, especially with how well Novak did this past week. Played so well all week. Really impressive in Tel Aviv, winning the entire thing. Played very well against Vasek Pospisil and dominated Marin Cilic. I think it's kind of weird to say, is it possible that it's kind of refreshing to see him back? Because we haven't seen him very often in recent time. I mean, besides Laver Cup, we haven't seen Novak since Wimbledon. So it's really nice to see him back out there. I'm curious to see what that long break has done to his game. It's already proving really good things. He doesn't seem to have stopped very much, but it was also a much smaller tournament. So with that said, I really want to see what he's able to do in Astana, because now he's handling much bigger names, much better players. Granted, I mean, Cilic, Safiullin, Pospisil, and Andujar are nobody to look over. But you look at his draw, and he's got Christian Garin, and in his quarter he has Felix, who he just lost to, Davidovich Fokina, Daniil Medvedev. Some really big names and some real big threats for him, to pose for him. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how things go. And I'm really excited to see how far he can go here.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at that entire draw in Astana, it's very strong.
Yeah, there's a lot here.
And some really great first rounds. Alcaraz versus Holger Rune. Manarino versus Wawrinka. A battle of some throwback names. And overall, a very strong draw with some very strong seeds. Rublev, Tsitsipas, Hurkacz, Cilic, Djokovic, Auger-Aliassime, and Medvedev create a very strong draw. And there's also some very strong unseeded players as well in Bautista Agut and Davidovich Fokina and Rusuvori and Garin, Cressy, Kachanov. I mean, Kachanov after his run at the U.S. Open.
Yeah, right. It's going to be interesting seeing how he performs here.
I think we can see some I think there's a lot of potential for some upsets here.
Yeah.
I think the upsets tend to happen at these smaller tournaments where these lower ranked players are really playing for lack of a better term, for pretty much their entire career.
Yeah.
They're fighting for this and they need these points, whereas for the bigger guys, this is sometimes, at least at the 250s, this can tend to be like a practice run for them. Like a warm-up.
Right, yeah.
Because these points aren't as crucial to them as it is for the lower-ranked players. Whereas somebody like Alcaraz can just increase a very tiny, tiny lead, or Medvedev can gain a tiny advantage, and the maximum that you're going to really jump over is 1 or 2 spots when you're in the top, but when you're at the bottom, when you're in the top 100, top 200...
Yeah, getting those 500 points is like
that
crucial
250, that 500 points, that can jump you like tens of ranking spots up. So, going to be really interesting to see what happens there. Moving over to the other ATP 500 happening this week in Tokyo. I was saying this to Logan before we started recording. I think this is going to be a much more interesting, a much more unpredictable draw.
Right.
Some really great names spread throughout. Tiafoe, Demonor, Mackie McDonald.
Rude, Fritz.
Just looking at the seeds alone, it's Rudes, Demonor, Tiafoe, Evans, Kyrgios, Shapo, Taylor Fritz, and Coric. Very interesting that there's no 2 seed.
Yeah, I just noticed that. What is that?
I'm not 100% sure what happened. Okay, sorry, I have it now. Cam Norrie had to withdraw due to illness.
Oh no.
So you do have a lucky loser in the draw. But some very strong, again, unseeded players that I think can make some surprises happen here. You have James Duckworth, Thanasi Kokkinakis, which is going to be a fantastic first round. Kokkinakis versus Borna Coric. You have Nishioka and Kekmanovic. Tara Daniel, very strong. Mackie McDonald, Alexei Paparin, Kamil Majchak. Some very strong names scattered throughout.
Nakashima.
Oh, Brandon Nakashima.
Yeah, Nakashima is
who played so well at Wimbledon. And I mentioned this earlier to Logan. I'm very excited for this match. Shapo versus Stevie Johnson.
Mm-hmm. He did mention that.
Stevie Johnson, one of, if not the greatest college tennis players of all time.
That will be an interesting game.
I think we have some really good
I'm excited to see Coric play more.
I don't know what happened. I think Coric had an injury, I believe. And
I was about to say, he kind of like disappeared for a minute. But
I mean, that tends to happen sometimes on the tour, but I mean, you can see he's still playing well. I'm curious to see what happens there. Another one that excites me is Nick.
Yes.
I was very disappointed to see that Nick was not playing Laver Cup.
Yeah,
that's what I was expecting. I was expecting Nick Kyrgios.
He would have
at
tore
Laver
it
Cup.
up if he played Laver Cup.
He would have done very well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Something I feel like has been off. Since he lost the U.S. Open. He's been very, very. I want to say, discouraged, and he was furious with himself when he lost to Kachanov, and he hasn't played since. So I'm curious if that has something to do with it. If it's potentially the mental size.
I was about to say, I feel like it kind of does, right? He's a very like mental player, I think.
Yeah.
He is. To put it simply.
But it's also very interesting when you think about it in certain ways. Nick is someone that thrives under chaos, but at the same time, when he can put his head down and focus, he plays extremely well.
Oh, yeah.
Thrives in chaos. Just look at Wimbledon. Thrives in chaos. Look at his match against Stefanos. But then put his head down and really get focused, and then he plays well. Look at his first set against Novak.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because I personally can't tell you what I think he plays better under, because he plays well under both, but I feel like if he can put his head down, I think something to note is that when he played that Wimbledon final, he kind of realized that he has a genuine shot at this.
Yeah.
Now it was just a matter of if he could focus enough, but then he gets frustrated.
I was going to say, I feel like that shocked him
when he gets focused, he gets frustrated.
Right, because
when he intentionally causes chaos, he thrives, and it's interesting. It's a very interesting duality. his match against Tsitsipas, he used the mental battle to his advantage. Infuriated Tsitsipas, and that worked for him. I don't know, but I think
he's just more loose when he's in that mindset.
But there's also that
more creative.
You can't, when it comes to playing the mental game, you can't beat Novak, Rafa, or Roger.
No.
So I think that's where the strategy changes, where he needed to hunker down and really focus, because against someone like Tsitsipas, who can tend to be immature sometimes, you can really use the mental game against him. Whereas with someone like Novak,
who's like a mental fortress,
literally,
it's like,
he's his own psychologist. It's you can't beat him at the mental game. You're not gonna outlast him.
And we see this all the time with like Djokovic's matches. It doesn't matter how, like, if you're up like 1 set, 2 sets.
I think we talked about this before.
I think we talked about this last time.
His match against Tsitsipas at the French Open final just went back, put a towel over his head, came out and did an absolute madness. I don't even... goes down the first 2 sets, then puts a towel over his head and miraculously comes back better than ever and steamrolled the last 3. Mental fortress is the best way to put it.
Mental fortress.
He's a mental fortress. And it's really, really interesting to me. And I think that I'll dare to say that Nick had probably one of the best chances to win that Grand Slam against Novak when you look at the 4 finals. Novak versus Tsitsipas, Novak versus Novak versus Berrettini in Wimbledon, Novak versus Nick Kyrgios at Wimbledon. I'm trying to remember. There's more. I would say even Dominic Thiem, Australian Open. I'm really just trying to spitball a few right now because I'm just trying to remember all of those finals. You can even in a way extend it to Medvedev in 2021 in the Australian Open, even though Medvedev came back and beat him at the end of that year at the U.S. Open. But I think, it just... To beat any of the big 3, I think something that you need is extreme mental fortitude. Because if you don't, they will outlast you.
Yeah.
And that goes for both Rafa and Novak. And Rafa that example came at the French Open this year against Casper Ruud. So, really interesting. I want to ask you, Logan, your opinion on this. How soon do you think they will retire? I'm thinking. Let's look at ages.
I think Djokovic doesn't have any more than 4 or 5 years left in him. He's 35.
Nadal turned 36 this year.
He did. I think Nadal might retire sooner than Djokovic. 100%.
Djokovic seems to be more physically fit, and Nadal has always been is injury-prone liability.
He's littered with injuries, and as much as I don't want to see that, that's just how it is, and I feel like that he'll just have to retire earlier. I think because of that, but So I'd give Nadal maybe 2 years, maybe. Some good tournaments here and there.
Here's what I'll say. With Rafa, I think I'll give him 2 to 3 years. With Novak, if his body lets him, he will go to 40.
I think so too. Yeah, 5 years, man.
I think he'll even go past 40. I mean, Roger just retired, and how old? I mean, Roger is, I believe, 40. Yeah, he's 41.
Yeah.
I think Novak will go as long if his body permits him to.
His athleticism is crazy, so Novak he totally could push it.
Novak will stop when he literally has to, when there is no other option than stopping for his own health.
Yeah.
So I think with him, I will say though, I don't know how many, there's also the matter of he could go for so long, but how much will he win after going for so long?
I think he'll still put up good numbers in 2 years, 2.5 years. I still think he still has a lot of game left in him. I
agree. And some of his matches even now we're still seeing some of the best of him, which is insanely impressive at 35 years old.
Yeah,
for him to still being the same performances that he was still able to do a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
With Rafa, I see probably 2 more French Opens and he's done. I'll give him a ceiling of 3 or 4 more Grand Slams. I'll give him a ceiling of that.
He might,
and I'll say a floor of 1. I think he has at least 1 more French Open.
I was about to say
year.
He might do that kind of a thing where he does like 2 full years on the tour, and then he'll just do French Open on a 3rd year.
Yeah,
I feel like that's something he would do, is retire at French Open.
I'm saying it now. If he does, there's literally at least the way I see things. There's only one of 2 places. There are 2 places that I think he will retire. It's either the French Open or the Madrid Masters 1000. The Madrid Open would make sense because it's a really big tournament in his home country.
Yeah.
But the one that obviously makes the most sense is the French Open. His win-loss record there is insane. So I think that's one. And I think Novak would retire in Serbia. The Serbian Open makes sense to me in Belgrade. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, I don't know. Any of the slams would make sense for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only reason why Laver Cup makes sense to me for Roger is because that was Roger's idea. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Right, yeah.
I would have thought he was going to retire. My prediction was he was going to retire at next year's Wimbledon. I thought he was going to skip the whole calendar year.
Yeah.
Play in Halle and Basel in those tournaments on the grass, court swing, so he could go back to 2 of his, I feel like, probably most beloved tournaments that he's won. Basel, obviously, for Switzerland. And Halle, I don't know how many times he's won that one. And I think he was going to end it at Wimbledon next year. But it was that's why it was very surprising to me that he ended at a Laver Cup this year, because I thought he was still going to go for 1 more year. But it makes sense knowing that was his idea. And also, the Laver Cup this year was in a very fitting place for him to close it. For it to be in the O2 Arena in London, somewhere where he's won the ATP finals numerous times, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I think also just like the culture and climate surrounding the Laver Cup, like with all of the best
also to be on the same team.
Right.
I think that his final match being a doubles match with his best friend makes a lot of sense.
I know. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. So I think it's really hard to kind of look at how legends close their careers. So many have.
It says a lot about
come
them,
and gone. I mean,
yeah.
No, it does, and I think, in my opinion, the best close, and I said this last week, I think the best close that we've seen, in my opinion, personally, was Pete Sampras's. Wins the 2002 U.S. Open and says, "Thank you, I'm done." It was brilliant. It was, in my opinion, the best way to go. I mean, that was his home, one of his best tournaments in his career. It just seemed like a very fitting place for him to end it.
He was like, "Yeah, I'm good." Leaves.
Serena closing it at the U.S. Open. That also makes a lot of sense. Again, her home country, somewhere where she's done historically very, very well. It makes sense.
Would anyone ever retire at the ATP finals or the WTA finals, you think?
If somebody has the amount of ATP or WTA finals as Rafa had French Opens, it makes sense.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, some players could use it as a final goodbye because of
calendar
it
year.
Just being exactly the last thing on the calendar
That's
year.
What I was thinking. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm done. After this year, I'm done.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
But there's a lot of players that don't close their careers at a tournament. They just close it, period.
Right, yeah.
In an announcement.
Right. They're just like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
It's really interesting. Ash Barty's a great example, and so is Aga Radwanska, so is, I don't know how many countless other players. But it does make sense. A lot of players do choose to kind of just make the announcement and play one last tournament as that kind of final goodbye message.
Yeah. Okay. This is the most awkward segue
transition
possible, but speaking of players not playing anymore, can we talk about Simona Halep for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
We meant to talk about this last time, but we totally forgot. We totally
So Simona Halep ended her 2022 campaign.
Right.
Due to a surgery that she said that she should have done, but pressured herself to keep going.
Yeah, it was it's a nose related surgery, right, for breathing. Yeah.
So it was something that had impacted her breathing, like Logan, like you said, and I think it's also. I mean, obviously, breathing's very important.
Yeah, I can't
Probably
imagine.
one of the dumbest things I've ever said on this podcast, but yes, breathing
is very important. Yeah,
and so no, but if there are any issues that are a hindrance to the way that somebody's able to play, that is obviously important.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, that's resolved.
I read nose surgery at face value, and I was like, huh? But then I was like, oh my gosh, right? Like you can't, like you're going out there and playing, and you have trouble breathing, like. I don't know. Yeah. I guess, I don't know. Maybe half of her wanted to, like, try to, like, push this year out. I wonder, like, if that, like, affected her performance in, like, such a substantial way. Where, like, she might have seen, like, greater success, like, as of late, as a player, if it weren't for that being an issue. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm certainly... going to be waiting for her to come back from that and just sort of see her performance there, but I don't know.
Then let me ask, what do we think she's going to be like when she comes back in 2023? I mean, obviously she's going to do a lot of preparation.
Oh yeah, she has to. After
she has to, especially
the calendar year off.
Playing at such a high level, and it was so good to see her come back to such a good form, breaking the top 10 again. I mean, Halep was a player that was always very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she broke the top 10 and won her Grand Slams, she became more and more of a household name for the sport. And obviously it's so much for her country, and so I think and there's a lot of passion is what I'm trying to get at here.
Right.
And so I'm excited to see what she can do next year.
Me too. I really don't think that she's going to hit the ground running at all.
I don't see a Grand Slam next year, but potentially in 2024. Now, no. I do see big titles for her. I 100% can see a Masters a WTA 1000 title for her next year.
More oxygen, new coach.
A new coach that she seems to have a very good relationship with.
Yes.
I mean, she changed her entire team after starting to partner with Patrick Mouratoglou. So
she's going to show up 2023 a new woman.
Yeah. New woman, post-divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think, genuinely, though, it was good to see her play well again. And I think, I don't know how much, it's not, I think she'll still play well. But I think it's very weird because, number one, taking a break from the sport obviously does a lot of things. And especially taking such a lengthy break. Hopefully she can recover quickly and go back out to the practice courts again.
Right, yeah. But I can imagine...
But at the same time, it's not an arm surgery. It's not a leg surgery. It's not... It's nose... So it's nothing that will directly impact her physical ability to play the game.
Yeah, and it's something that's currently hindering her performance, right?
Yes.
So coming out of that, right, should naturally, I would think, or... I think people would think that, like, there would be some, improvement there, right, in sort of her performance. I mean, obviously, the biggest thing that I'm thinking about is just literally the lack of play, not anything to do with the nose at this point of her coming into 2023.
Because I think, like you said, like this is only something that's going to improve her play rather than be a setback like most leg and arm injuries are.
Right, yeah.
Those types of surgeries.
Right, like team's wrist.
Exactly. And so, I mean, that was a huge one. And so,
especially since you had a one-handed backhand. That's so
but the thing is, even with her ending her 2022 season, the WTA Tour does not end their 2022 season.
No.
So next week we have
a
WTA 500. Thank you. That's why I major in this. So we have the Agel Open in the Czech Republic. So. Let's kind of break down what we see here. A lot of pretty good names here that I'm excited to see. Iga Swiatek is back. Haven't seen her play in a while. I think the last time we saw her play, if I'm not mistaken, is the U.S. Open.
Yes, sir. And we won't until round 16 because she has a bye.
Yeah. We have Beatrice Haddad-Maia, who had a great start to 2022. Annette Kontaveit, who played very well in her last tournament, losing the final to Barbara Krejcikova. who played phenomenally. That's very interesting to me. We'll come back to Ostrava, but I want to harp on this for 5 seconds. I don't know how, but Krejcikova just won her first title of the year. I don't know how. She has been notoriously good at singles ever since she won the French Open last year in 2021. I'm very confused. It seems that she has just made more of a shift to doubles, which makes sense because her and Katerina Siniakova are insanely good. One of the best doubles pairings in women's doubles currently. I mean, it's evident as that is the only pairing to have qualified for the Tour Finals at the end of this year after winning the U.S. Open. But, yeah, she had an insane tournament. Beat Tomljanovic in straight sets. Beat Marta Kostyuk in straight sets. Then beat 3, 2, and 1 seeds in a row. Beating Beatrice Haddad-Maia in straight sets, losing only 1 set to Belinda Bencic, and that even being a tiebreaker, wins that one, the 2 seed, and then she beats the 1 seed Annette Kontaveit. I genuinely am so confused.
Staggering.
So, and there you go. She wins her first title of 2022. And another stat that I think this is a good conversation to have is that is her 4th title on the tour. And what I want to bring up here is how often on the women's tour now players will win a slam before they win like a few tour titles.
Exactly. Yeah.
Krejcikova didn't have many. Iga Swiatek and Naomi Osaka at the French and the U.S. respectively. Those were both their first titles of their career,
which is insane.
To listen, open your career titles with a Grand Slam, that takes something else. That takes a whole nother level.
But it also takes a volatile climate, a volatile competitive climate.
And with that said, Iga did win the French Open in front of nobody.
She did. Yeah. Well,
and Naomi Osaka won her 2018 U.S. Open title amidst Serena's controversy. So, if you want to talk about volatile climates, exhibits A and B, ladies and gentlemen.
You know.
But genuinely, I think it's really impressive. I mean, we've seen some really great WTA Grand Slam winners over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to bring in a conversation afterwards, but let's just go back to this tournament right now. It's a really great draw. Kontaveit's there. Emma Raducanu, it's so great to see her, and same with Azarenka. Daria Kasatkina, Belinda Bencic, Krejcikova is back. Again, Sakari, Yelena Ostapenko, oh boy. Maddie Keys, Kvitova, and Paula Badosa, amidst a whole slew of other great names, great players. Mm-hmm. But one that I want to harp on here is Jeannie Bouchard is back. What on earth? Where in the world has she been?
I don't know.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
I have no idea.
She's been playing, but I just,
she's just not emerged.
Just now, going through this draw, I'm realizing, holy cow, she's back. I don't know. This is I want to remind everybody here. This is a Wimbledon finalist we're talking about here, ladies and gents. I don't know where she's been.
On the subject of
she's been playing, but I mean, she hasn't been
very well at slams and then sort of not doing all that much and then coming back. She's playing Bencic.
Belinda Bencic. I like Belinda Bencic. She's very good.
She's very cool.
But do I see either of them winning this title? No. Well, maybe Bencic.
I don't either.
Maybe Bencic.
I don't think so.
My prediction.
I'm a doubter.
My prediction, I am predicting a Swiatek versus Krejcikova final. That is what makes sense to me. I genuinely, if not that, I can see Kontaveit making a deep run. Depending on how she's feeling, I can see Azarenka doing very well. Paula Badosa also can be doing very well. Yeah. Badosa really wants to perform well here because she wants to clinch that final spot. So that's what it's about at this point. It's about those ranking points that are going to take them to the tour finals or not. Because these next few tournaments are make or break for them. Either they're going to the tour finals or it's the end of their season. So I think Badosa will make a deep run, and Sakari might as well. And all of that, and Bencic probably will be fighting as well, all in the hopes of a tour finals berth. Same goes for Kontaveit and Hademai and all these players with seeds except for Swiatek. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm not sure. I see Swiatek in the final. I think just because of like how well she's been performing lately. But like I don't know.
So
it could be a good handful of people. I do want to see Sakari go far. I think she deserves that. I don't know if she can, but we'll see.
She can. You never know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna close. I want to close out this episode with this conversation. Some really, really great players, and I'm gonna list off a few players that have won one slam in the last few years from the women's side. And the question I want to pose is, how many of these players will retire as one slam wonders? Because that is a notorious...
fun question.
That is a notorious issue on the women's tour.
Oh, yeah.
Full of one slam wonders. And I mean, technically, same goes for the men. But I'm saying in recent times, a lot of players have won one Grand Slam and then stopped. There was a lot of fear about Swiatek or Osaka doing that. Neither have. Osaka has 4, Swiatek has 3. Who, I have to say, I'm so happy because Swiatek has had the best year of her career this year.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, so, of recent times, our current one-slammers, Yelena Ostapenko, Sloane Stephens, Bianca Andreescu, Sofia Kenin, Barbara Krejcikova, and Emma Raducanu, and Elena Rybakina. So, I did omit Wozniacki for the very sole and obvious reason of she's already retired.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one name here that I sure hope retires a one slam wonder, because I still think that they didn't deserve to win the first one, and that's Ostapenko. I don't like Ostapenko. She is notoriously a not very nice person. So, personally, I wouldn't mind if she retired a one slam wonder. Everybody else that I've named, I actually really like, and they play very well. Sloane Stephens, she's very on and off.
Right.
She's one of those players that will beat someone in the top 10 and then lose to someone outside of the top 100.
Right. I haven't seen Kenin or Raducanu do all that much lately. I know
Raducanu a bit more than Kenin.
Yeah. I know Emma is like still like very young, so I can't imagine. I think she'll at least have like a good handful of more shots, and that's kind of on her at that point. But I'm not sure.
Very important to remember that she is 19 years old. She turns 20 this year. Very young, like you said. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what she does. She won her title at, I believe it was 18, 17 years old, which is insane.
Yeah, that was,
Sofia Kenin, Sloane Stephens, Ostapenko. Those are my picks for most likely to end as one slam wonders. I think that I'm going to throw Elena Rybakina on the potentials. It may happen. Could she win more? If she plays the way she did at Wimbledon, she could. Beating Ons Jabeur is no small feat.
Yes.
And she played very well to kind of throw off Ans's game. But I think... I don't know. I just don't see another one from her. But I also think, in my opinion, she's more likely, in my opinion, than Ostapenko, Stevens, or potentially even Kenin. And that slowly and the Kenin mention slowly comes from the fact that I don't know where she's been, where she is.
I was supposed to say,
I don't know what is going on.
I have no information about
She's currently
Kenin.
ranked number 311 in the world. I don't know.
That's so wacky.
You know, no,
last year she was top 20.
I'm gonna throw Kenin on the same page as Rybakina. I could see them both. I don't think I will, but I think the least likely to win another one will be Ostapenko or Stevens. I think Emma still could win one. I think Krejcikova could still win one. And above all, I think Bianca Andreescu can still win one. Andreescu is coming off of injury, so that's kind of difficult for her right now. But she played very well in her comeback tournaments, so I definitely could see her come back to former form, but I think it's going to be very difficult with the current rise of your Iga Swiatek's, of your Ons Jabeur's, and
Coco
then
Gauff.
And Coco Gauff, and then the comeuppance of a lot of players, returning, like Simona Halep, or those that are still posing threats to Andreescu, someone like a Maria Sakkari, like a Paula Badosa, the likes of those kinds of players. And same goes for a Jessie Pegula, Sabalenka, so many players. But I think those names pose threats to all of these remaining One Slam wonders. I think Swiatek, Jabeur, Coco Gauff, and a handful of others.
Yeah, we were talking.
Who have been playing very well recently. I think would just, especially Swiatek, Jabeur, and Gauff, would absolutely smack the crap out of Raducanu or any of them.
This kind of goes back to a conversation we had a couple episodes ago where we were talking about sort of the volatility of the WTA and how that's kind of... Absolutely. We think that's dissolving a little bit.
Slowly,
yeah. And because of, like, Jabeur and Swiatek and, like, how...
And Coco Gauff,
And Coco Gauff. And, like, how they're going to sort of have this giant hand sort of that's, like, over, like, all of these other players.
I think I
think that is going to be... Make it very difficult for.
I think you're looking at I think when you look at those three names, I think you're looking at the WTA's version of the big three, but to a lesser extent. In the sense of
currently, sure.
In the sense of, I think that those three will dip their hands in a good amount of the titles, potentially even half or majority. But I think with the big three, when they were at their peak, when they were at their prime, there was nobody contesting them for slams, except for each other.
Right.
Here, I think there can be contests.
There is contention, yeah.
There will be more than against the big three, because the big three were showing a level of dominance where nobody could beat them. But I think when you look here, there is opportunities.
But those opportunities, I'm saying, are closing off, I think, because of, these players, and they're only getting better. And they're still super young, too, right?
I think...
I don't know. That's
currently...
Yeah.
For the WTA players, they need to get in the top 32, in the top 20, get a seed, and they can do some damage. Some really, really heavy hitters, if they can get into a high enough seed to take them far enough, they can pull the momentum. Say they meet a Swiatek or a Jabeur or a Coco Gauff, say in the quarterfinals, semifinals, but if they have the momentum leading up, they could be in a very, very good position to do some heavy damage. And I'm looking at Paula Badosa. I'm looking at Jessie Pegula. I'm looking at Sabalenka, Sakkari, Halep. Especially out of how she's been playing recently, Caroline Garcia. I'm looking at Bencic. I'm looking at Petra Kvitova and Azarenka. I remember how Azarenka did last year at the U.S. Open when she lost to Osaka in the finals. She played extremely well. In 2020. 2 years ago. I think if she could get back to that form, she could be an extreme threat. But, yeah, I think it's tough to deny. I think next year we're going to see... I think for next year, and I'll harp on this a bit more when we have our recap episode at the end of the year, but I think we're going to see next year, I think we're going to see Swiatek win at least one more. I think we're going to see Jabeur win at least one, and I think Coco Gauff could finally get hers Because the way she's been playing recently, I don't know how much there is stopping her right now.
Right, and
So,
that's gonna be a fun time watching her win one.
Yeah, and I would love for it to be the U.S. Open.
That would be perfect.
I would love for it to be the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
That's how you bookend it. Well, not sorry, bookend it. Just actually start writing it.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think we're looking at a really exciting coming up few weeks going into next year.
Yeah.
Especially because everybody on each tour respectively at this point, it's that final grind to get to the end.
Right.
And speaking of that end, let's do our kind of recap on where the tour finals stand. Swiatek and Jabeur still the only two qualified lead that race, with Jessie Pegula and Coco Gauff coming in third and fourth respectively, pulling up the train. I think it's going to be really interesting. It's nice to have two new Americans at that tour finals. As for the men, we have 4 solidified seats.
Yes, we do.
At the ATP finals.
We have Alcaraz, Nadal, Ruud, and Stefanos.
Yes. Yeah. And so, I think that's a great 4. I like seeing... I love having Alcaraz there, and I think it's really great for him to get that experience. It's going to be against the best in the world.
I'm excited to see him perform at this finals.
There's a really big push now on the men's tour because those gaps need to be closing if they want to get in there.
I've seen a lot of great matches at these finals. So I
mean, Dominic Thiem showed up every single time he played here.
Stop. Don't talk to me about Dominic Thiem right now. No,
I know.
But it's like that 2020 final after he won the US Open, he went crazy.
But I'll also say this.
So I hope I see that level of performance from Alcaraz. That would just be insane. What's
interesting to me is that I'm looking at this round out of the top 10 currently in the landing, and it's Medvedev, Rublev, FAA, Felix, Zverev, Hurkacz, and Taylor Fritz.
Yeah.
And I think this is why this ATP 500 coming up and the following weeks is so vital. Is because Zverev has not been performing fantastic.
Oh, no.
And I think Hurkacz and Fritz are going to make a real big push right now to overtake his number 8 spot. That's Zverev 2,700. That's, at least from what I understand, that's majority from that first half of the year where he played very well.
Yeah.
And so Hurkacz and Fritz really need to make that last-minute push to the end. Will Medvedev and Rublev keep their spots? Is that lead enough? Medvedev is just under 1,000 over Taylor Fritz. Is it enough? I don't know. There's still Masters 1000s left. There's still ATP 500s left and 250s.
But I don't know what's going on with them.
Will Medvedev rack up enough points to solidify his spot? I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant. And the same goes for Rublev. I think I'll be surprised if Felix, Hurkacz, and Fritz are not in the finals, especially Felix and Fritz. I would be very surprised if they weren't there.
Interesting. I don't know, cause I'm still kind of coming off of the mindset from like last year's rankings and the year before's rankings, where like you would see like Medvedev, Zverev at the top, but like and you would think that they would sort of like keep exponentially. Right, like rising, sort of like as they play more, but I don't know what's going on. I mean, Zverev has always kind of been, I think, a very volatile player, but like Medvedev, after winning the U.S. Open last year, I'm just not sure what's happening with him right now. Yeah. I just don't know. And he played really well too.
Yeah,
he played very well.
But yeah, I think it's gonna be a really, really fun upcoming weeks, and like we said, because everybody understands that this is that final push.
Yeah.
It's that now or never time that if they don't get their points now, they're not looking at the tour finals on their schedule.
Like, I'm expecting a lot from Djokovic just from the standpoint of him not having played, and he's gonna go for that final spot heavy.
Yeah.
So
I think we're expecting a lot. So get ready for that next week.
Yes.
So we will catch you guys next week. See ya.